Get ready to witness 10 Klan members face their life sentences in court. Some cry, some mock, and others go completely numb in these shocking real reactions caught on camera. Number 10. Fraser Glenn Cross.
Examine Fraser Glenn Cross. Last week, he was found guilty, as many of you know, of his crimes and now faces the death penalty.
Fraser Glenn Cross, also known as Fraser Glenn Miller, was a former Ku Klux Klan leader who turned one of America's most ordinary Sundays into a scene of hate and horror. On April 13, 2014, in Overland Park, Kansas, Cross drove to a Jewish community center and later to a nearby Jewish retirement home. Armed with a shotgun and handgun, he opened fire on innocent people he had never met. His targets were chosen for one reason, because he believed they were Jewish.
Center. Prosecutors say that he intended to kill Jews, but say what he didn't know is that all 3 victims were Christian.
By the end of the rampage, 3 people were dead. 14-year-old Reet Underwood, his grandfather William Corporon, and 53-year-old Terry Lamanno. None of them were Jewish. Cross's hate had blinded him so deeply that even his victims did not match the group he wanted to harm. His arrest came shortly after the shootings. When police caught him, he shouted anti-Semitic slurs and declared his motive clearly: he wanted to kill Jews. His trial began in 2015, and from the very start, Cross made it a spectacle. He fired his lawyers and chose to represent himself.
I don't even want to participate in this trial if you're going to gag me.
Throughout the proceedings, he was defiant, shouting racist remarks in court, interrupting witnesses, and calling himself a soldier for the white race. The jury and the public saw a man who felt no remorse and who gloried in his crimes. Yet, his own arrogance sealed his fate.
Oh, I do that, sure.
After a 2-week trial, the jury took less than 2 hours to find him guilty of capital murder, attempted murder, and several firearms charges. During sentencing, Cross tried to justify his actions, even telling jurors he was proud of what he had done.
When it suits him. Why would he, a DA? He's got a slam dunk. Let's face it, y'all gonna put me on death row. Everybody knows that.
But the law did not bend to his hate. The court sentenced him to something worse than a life sentence. He was sentenced to death, the first such sentence in Kansas in over a decade. Number 9. Travis McMichael, Gregory McMichael, and William Bryan.
Count 9. Criminal attempt to commit a felony.
I just killed a man. I had blood on me still. It was the most traumatic event of my life. I was scared to death. I mean, it was...
On February 23, 2020, Ahmaud Arbery, a 25-year-old black man, went out for a jog through the Satilla Shores neighborhood near Brunswick, Georgia. The McMichaels, Travis, a 34-year-old former Coast Guard member, and his father Gregory, a retired investigator, spotted Arbery and wrongly assumed he was a burglar. They grabbed their guns, jumped into a pickup truck, and chased him down the street. Their neighbor, William Bryan, joined the pursuit in his own vehicle, recording the horrifying event on his phone.
25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery, seen here being killed in the street on February 23rd in Brunswick, Georgia.
The video showed Arbery running for his life as the trucks boxed him in. When Arbery tried to run around them, Travis McMichael confronted him with a shotgun. A struggle followed, and Travis fired 3 close-range shots. Arbery collapsed and died on the road. The footage of his final moments would later become the key piece of evidence in the case.
Some showing this unidentified person who began visiting the property in October and took nothing.
For more than 2 months, no arrests were made. Local prosecutors initially declined to charge the men, citing Georgia's citizens arrest law.
The change, that's why I was trying to make sure how close it was.
Absolutely do.
Yep. All right, let's walk. You're okay, sir. Like I said, I can only imagine. I hope I never have to understand what you feel right now.
Public outrage exploded after the video went viral in May 2020, forcing state authorities to step in. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation arrested all 3 men within days. Their trial began in November 2021, drawing national attention. The prosecution argued that Arbery was unarmed and targeted solely because of his race. The defense claimed the men acted in self-defense.
Through the trial of this case, that becomes the reality. This is what a mob-dominated trial looks like in the 21st century, and we're asking for the mistrial.
After 2 weeks of testimony and gripping closing arguments, the jury found all 3 men guilty of murder. Travis McMichael received a life sentence without parole, while Gregory McMichael and William Bryan were also sentenced to life imprisonment, with Bryan given the possibility of parole after 30 years.
2, court sentences Mr. Bryan to life with the possibility of parole on count 3.
In 2022, the trio faced a separate federal hate crime trial, where they were again found guilty, this time for violating Arbery's civil rights and targeting him because he was black. The federal convictions ensured they would spend the rest of their lives behind bars. The justice served in Ahmaud Arbery's case became a turning point, leading Georgia to repeal its old citizens arrest law and pass stronger hate crime legislation. Number 8. Jose Torres and Kayla Norton.
I never walk up to you and say those words to you, and I'm so sorry that happened.
In 2015, Jose Torres and Kayla Norton became the faces of a shocking hate crime that unfolded in Douglasville, Georgia. What started as a local family's birthday celebration turned into a day of fear and hate when the couple and their friends, members of a group calling themselves Respect the Flag, drove through a neighborhood waving Confederate flags, shouting racial slurs, and threatening black families.
They used the N-word and they said they were going to kill people on my property.
The people in the pickups are from a group called Respect the Flag, referring to the Confederate flag.
The group interrupted a child's birthday party, an innocent event filled with balloons, children, and music. Torres and Norton, both armed, joined others as they circled the property in pickup trucks, screaming racial insults. Witnesses testified that Torres pointed his shotgun at the terrified crowd, threatening to kill them. It was a day meant for joy that quickly became a moment of terror and humiliation for an entire community. Police investigations quickly tied Torres and Norton to several similar incidents that weekend, where the group harassed black residents across Douglas County. When videos of their behavior surfaced online, outrage spread. The couple claimed it was just a show of Southern pride, but prosecutors saw it differently. It was intimidation fueled by racial hatred. Their trial in 2017 exposed the dark undercurrents of racism that still lingered in the community. Prosecutors charged them under Georgia's street gang terrorism law, emphasizing that their actions were coordinated and intended to spread fear. Witnesses broke down in tears, describing the threats and how children screamed in fear as Torres aimed his gun.
I know I was in the wrong, but I want you all to know that that is not me. That is not me. That's not him. I would never walk up to you and say those words to you, and I'm so sorry that happened.
The courtroom grew tense when the judge delivered his decision. Jose Torres was sentenced to 20 years in prison, serving 13. Kayla Norton received 15 years, serving 6. Both cried as they heard their sentences, realizing the gravity of their crimes. The judge reminded them that freedom of speech never included the freedom to terrorize others. Number 7. Jeremy Christian.
The man convicted in the deadly Max attack will spend the rest of his life.
In May 2017, a shocking crime took place in Portland, Oregon that left the entire nation horrified. Jeremy Joseph Christian, a 35-year-old man known for his extremist and racist views, committed one of the most disturbing hate crimes in recent U.S. history. It began on a normal Friday afternoon when Christian boarded a Max train and began shouting racist and anti-Muslim insults at 2 young black girls, one of whom was wearing a hijab. His words were violent, hateful, and loud enough to terrify everyone nearby. Three men, Taliesin Namkai Meche, Ricky Best and Micah Fletcher, decided to step in and protect the girls. What happened next turned a moment of courage into tragedy. Christian pulled out a knife and attacked the men. Namkai Meche and Best were fatally stabbed, while Fletcher was badly injured, but survived. The incident was captured on security cameras and soon spread across the country as a symbol of both hate and heroism. Christian was arrested shortly after the attack, still shouting racist and violent phrases while being taken into custody. His lack of remorse stunned both investigators and the public. During his trial in 2020, he showed no regret and even shouted at victims' families in court. The courtroom was tense. Every hearing was a painful reminder of how deep hatred could cut. Prosecutors built a strong case using video evidence, eyewitness testimony, and Christian's own hateful online posts. The defense claimed he suffered from mental illness, but jurors were unconvinced. In February 2020, the jury found him guilty on all major counts, including 2 counts of first-degree murder, attempted murder, and hate crimes. In June 2020, Judge Cheryl Albrecht sentenced Jeremy Christian to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The families of the victims wept, but there was also relief. Justice had been served. Number 6. James Alex Fields, Jr. James Alex Fields, Jr. became a symbol of hate-fueled violence in modern America after the tragic events of August 12, 2017 in Charlottesville, Virginia. Day, the city was holding the Unite the Right rally, a gathering of white supremacists, neo-Nazis, and far-right extremists. Tensions were high as counter-protesters assembled to oppose the racist demonstrations. What began as a day of protest quickly descended into chaos and death. Fields, a 20-year-old from Ohio, had long shown admiration for Adolf Hitler and Nazi ideology. He arrived in Charlottesville with the same hatred that fueled the marchers chanting, "Jews will not replace us," but his crime would soon turn deadly. After the rally was declared unlawful and crowds dispersed, Fields drove his Dodge Challenger through downtown streets filled with counter-protesters. Without hesitation, he accelerated into the crowd, striking dozens of people. One woman, 32-year-old Heather Heyer, was killed instantly. 19 others were seriously injured, some thrown into the air by the impact. The moment was captured on video and spread across the world. A horrifying snapshot of hate turned into murder. The justice process was swift but deliberate. Fields was arrested the same day, charged first with second-degree murder, later upgraded to first-degree murder as prosecutors described his act as premeditated. During his trial in 2018, the courtroom heard powerful testimonies from survivors who still suffered from broken bones and trauma. The prosecution presented Fields' social media history filled with racist and violent content, proving his intention to harm. His defense argued he was afraid and panicked, but the evidence told another story, one of deliberate, hateful violence. In December 2018, the jury found James Alex Fields, Jr. guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to life in prison plus 419 years. Later, in a federal hate crime case,
that happened while we were watching what was happening there on the Hill. There's a jury in Charlottesville, Virginia, who has recommended a life prison sentence for James Fields.
He pleaded guilty to 29 charges to avoid the death penalty and received another life sentence. Number 5. Dylan Storm Roof.
So, did you shoot him?
Yes.
What kind of gun did you use?
A Glock 45.
Okay.
Dylan Storm Roof walked into the courtroom in 2017 with the same blank expression that had haunted America since the night of June 17, 2015. He was 21 years old, pale, quiet, and showing no sign of remorse.
Can help you. 704-550-4122. And if you don't respond to the medication on the first visit, that visit is free.
The man accused of killing 9 black churchgoers at the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina, was finally facing justice. The courtroom was tense. Families of the victims sat just a few feet away, many clutching photos of their loved ones. Roof had chosen to represent himself, refusing legal counsel for most of the trial. The prosecutors began by outlining what they called a cold, calculated act of racial hatred. They told the jury how Roof entered the church during Bible study, sat quietly for nearly an hour, and then opened fire, reloading multiple times. Survivors testified in painful detail. One recalled hiding under a table as Roof said, "You have to go." Another described how he looked directly into their eyes before shooting.
Through the planning and practice that went in. GPS maps were also shown that indicated Roof was in Charleston 6 months and 3 weeks before the shooting. And both of those maps show that Roof stopped in front of Emmanuel A.
The evidence was overwhelming. His confession video, his racist online manifesto, and the photos of him posing with the Confederate flag and a gun. Roof never denied what he did. In his own closing statement, he told the jury he felt he had to do it. His calm voice only deepened the horror in the room. Prosecutors argued for the death penalty, calling his actions an attack on faith, peace, and race. The defense tried to spare his life, citing mental instability, but Roof refused to let them use insanity as a defense. After less than 3 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a unanimous verdict, guilty on all 33 federal charges, including hate crimes resulting in death. In January 2017, Dylann Roof was sentenced to death, the first person in U.S. history to receive a federal death sentence for a hate crime.
As I sat in the courtroom, this is a very hollow victory.
Even President Joe Biden, who later opposed capital punishment, refused to commute his sentence. Roof remains on federal death row in Indiana. Justice, though heavy and delayed, was served, a reminder that in America, even hate carried out in the name of ideology can meet its end under the rule of law. Number 4. Peyton Gendron.
I'm very sorry for all the pain I forced the victims and their families to suffer through. I'm very sorry for stealing the lives of your loved ones.
On May 14, 2022, an 18-year-old named Peyton Gendron carried out one of the deadliest racist attacks in recent American history.
Market, saying he was planning to continue his hate-fueled racist rampage to kill as many black people as possible.
It appeared that
armed with an assault-style rifle, body armor, and a helmet-mounted camera, Gendron drove for hours to Tops Friendly Market in a predominantly black neighborhood of Buffalo, New York. His intent was clear. He wanted to kill as many black people as possible.
Police arresting the suspected shooter, this woman, visibly distraught, falling to the ground.
He live-streamed his rampage online, broadcasting the horrifying act in real time. Within minutes, he shot 13 people, killing 10, most of them African American. Investigators later found that Gendron had written a racist manifesto filled with white supremacist ideology and references to the Great Replacement theory, a conspiracy claiming that white Americans were being replaced by minorities. His actions were deliberate, planned for months, and deeply rooted in racial hatred. When captured at the scene, after pointing his gun at his own head and being persuaded to surrender, Gendron showed no sign of remorse. His arrest marked the beginning of a long and emotional legal process that would expose the depth of his hateful beliefs. In November 2022, Gendron pleaded guilty in state court to multiple counts of first-degree murder and domestic terrorism motivated by hate. This plea spared the victims' families a lengthy trial, but confirmed his guilt beyond question. In February 2023, during his sentencing, the courtroom was filled with grief and anger as victims' relatives spoke directly to him. One father shouted that Gendron will never be forgiven, while others demanded justice for their loved ones. The judge delivered a life sentence without the possibility of parole, emphasizing that his crimes were pure evil and motivated by racist extremism. The federal government also filed separate hate crime charges, for which Gendron could face the death penalty, a decision still under review. Number 3. Devon Arthurs.
How do you wish to plead to these 5 charges?
I plead guilty.
Arthurs accepted responsibility for killing 2 of his roommates.
In May 2017, the city of Tampa, Florida, was shaken by a chilling crime that exposed the violent underbelly of neo-Nazi extremism. Devon Arthurs, then 18 years old, lived with 3 roommates who were members of a white supremacist group known as Atomwaffen Division. What began as shared extremist beliefs ended in murder when Arthurs suddenly turned against his own.
And I'd like to take this moment to tell the world to stay away from extremist groups and tell that I want to try to dedicate my life to getting people away from militant movement.
According to investigators, Arthurs shot and killed his roommates, Jeremy Himmelman and Andrew Onishuk, after a heated argument. The confrontation turned deadly when Arthurs accused them of disrespecting his decision to convert to Islam. He claimed he could no longer tolerate their hateful views toward other religions and minorities. The murders were brutal and deliberate, carried out inside their apartment with a .22 caliber rifle. After the killings, Arthurs calmly walked to a nearby store, took hostages, and declared he had killed 2 people. When police arrived, Arthurs surrendered without resistance. During questioning, he confessed to the killings, but described them as an act of revenge against the neo-Nazi movement he once supported. This confession led authorities to the apartment, where the bodies of Himmelman and Onishuk were discovered. The legal process was long and complex. Arthurs initially faced 2 counts of first-degree murder, armed kidnapping, and armed robbery. However, mental health evaluations delayed his trial for years. Psychiatrists diagnosed him with several mental disorders, and the court ordered treatment before he could be deemed competent to stand trial. In 2023, after multiple hearings and medical reviews, Arthurs was finally ruled competent. He pleaded guilty to 2 counts of second-degree murder and armed kidnapping. The court sentenced him to 45 years in prison, ensuring he would spend most of his life behind bars. Number 2. Steve Allen Boggs. In 2016, the quiet city of Evansville, Indiana, witnessed a crime that exposed the deep scars of racial hatred still present in modern America. Steve Allen Boggs, a 53-year-old man with a history of racist behavior, carried out a violent act fueled purely by prejudice. What began as an outburst of hate quickly became a federal case that showed how seriously the justice system treats hate-driven violence. According to court records, Boggs attacked a black man outside a convenience store after shouting racial slurs at him. Witnesses said Boggs used offensive language, telling the victim he did not belong in the neighborhood. When the victim tried to walk away, Boggs followed, punched him several times, and continued yelling racial insults. The assault left the victim injured and shaken, but more importantly, it sparked a hate crime investigation by federal authorities. The FBI and the U.S. Department of Justice took over the case, classifying it as a violation of federal civil rights laws. Prosecutors emphasized that Boggs's actions were not a random act of violence. They were a deliberate attack motivated by racial hatred. In court, federal prosecutors presented witness testimonies, video evidence, and Boggs' own statements showing his racist intent. In 2018, after months of hearings, Boggs pleaded guilty to a federal hate crime charge. The plea agreement acknowledged that his assault was motivated by race and that his words and actions were intended to intimidate. During sentencing, the judge condemned Boggs's actions, saying they were a reminder of why hate crime laws exist, to protect citizens from violence driven by bigotry. Boggs was sentenced to 46 months, which is nearly 4 years in federal prison, followed by supervised release. Number 1. Ernest Henry Avance.
A federal appeals court overturns the conviction of this man, reputed Ku Klux Klan leader James Ford Seal, serving 3 life sentences for his role in a
Ernest Henry Avance was a former Klan member who faced justice decades after committing a brutal hate crime during the civil rights era. His story is one of delayed but decisive accountability, proof that justice, though sometimes slow, can still catch up with the guilty. The case of Avance resurfaced in the early 2000s, more than 30 years after the murder he committed. In 1966, Avance and 2 other Klansmen killed Ben Chester White, a 67-year-old black caretaker in Natchez, Mississippi. Their motive was as twisted as it was senseless. They hoped to lure Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. into the area by murdering a black man, expecting King's presence to spark racial violence. White had no connection to civil rights activism. He was simply targeted for the color of his skin. For years, the murder went unpunished. Mississippi authorities tried Avance in 1967, but an all-white jury acquitted him, reflecting the deep racial bias of the time. The crime was soon buried by history, until federal prosecutors revisited it decades later. In 1999, new evidence emerged showing that Avance had killed White on federal land, giving the US government jurisdiction to prosecute him for murder under federal law. The trial began in 2003 at a federal court in Mississippi. Avance, by then 72 years old, sat quietly as prosecutors detailed how he and his accomplices had shot Ben Chester White multiple times before dumping his body into a river. The courtroom heard chilling testimony about the crime's brutality and the cold-blooded intent behind it. The defense tried to argue that too much time had passed, but the evidence and eyewitness accounts were undeniable. In February 2003, the jury found Ernest Henry Avance guilty of murder. He was sentenced to life in federal prison, ensuring that his old age would be spent behind bars. Avance died in 2004 while serving his sentence, just 1 year into it.